So, welcome to Elevated Health. I'm Dr. Tyler Elmore. So, I'm going to go over today one of the questions I get asked all the time. And that question is, what separates your clinic from everybody else's clinic? So, here at Elevated Health, we focus on the root cause of your health issues. Weight loss issues, thyroid issues, chronic and autoimmune type conditions. And so what we're going to do, and those of you that know me know a little bit of my health history. I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, with a couple of parasites, several different bacterial infections. I've got a video that we'll be posting on that so you can get a little bit more of a background on me so we can all understand where I'm coming from. But what we ended up doing was not necessarily going after the symptoms, which is what medicine likes to do. We went after the root cause of our illness, or my illness, and that's what we have been able to transition to now in our clinic at Elevated Health, and we show people now how to take charge of their health. So what we're going to do, and we're going to draw this in some simplistic diagrams up here, but hopefully you're going to get the gist of what we're trying to talk about. So basically, our approach is an inside-out proposition, and like I mentioned earlier, in medicine, there is a time and a place to go after symptoms. But in my situation, what nobody could answer was, why do you have the inflammation in your joints? And they wanted to put me on anti-inflammatories. They wanted to put me on methotrexate, prednisone, Plaquenil, several different medications that had some nasty, nasty side effects. I didn't want to go on those. And so anyhow, when I pressed the issue, I started talking about diet, started talking about nutrition. Nobody could answer why I had rheumatoid arthritis. The other answer they could never give me was, what cures rheumatoid arthritis? Everybody would say there is no cure. Now, I'm not up here touting a cure for rheumatoid arthritis. What I'm up here touting is when individuals get sick, what ends up happening is we can sit 10, 15, 20 different individuals in a room. We can expose them to the exact same stressors in life, and we're going to come up with 10 to 15 different diagnoses. Same stressors, different symptoms, different diagnoses. So what medicine's going to do is give you a medication to take care of the inflammation, or take care of the irritable bowel, or take care of the psoriasis symptoms, whatever the case may be. They're going after the symptoms. What we're trying to do is fix you from the inside out. So it's a long-term fix. So let's get to the board here. Now again, this is an overly simplistic diagram. I apologize. But here's basically, from a cellular level, one of the big things that we get with chronic and autoimmune conditions is inflammation. And that inflammation, we're not talking an injury type inflammation. We're talking a chronic system-wide inflammation that really affects digestion, absorption, hormone balance. And so what we're going to draw here is basically a cell membrane. So your cell is basically, the membrane on that is made of fat. Now we know now that there is good fat and there's bad fat. Back in the 80s, fat got a bad rap. We now again know that there is good fat and there is bad fat. So the membrane on this cell is made out of good fat. So on the inside of that cell, we have DNA, which is basically who we are. It's our genetic makeup. We also have ATP, which is energy production. We have a whole bunch of things that go on inside of a cell. The whole key is, once we eat food, we need to digest it enough that it can get transported inside of a cell so that your body now has the chemical messengers or the nutrition inside of that cell to do with it what it needs. So let's say, for example, on the outside of these cells we have receptors that are very specific to certain chemicals, certain nutrients when they get into the system. So basically, you go to McDonald's. We're going to give you this scenario. Number one meal has about 2,000 calories in it. You eat that. Ideally, those are broken down into glucose, which is transported via insulin into the blood, and that docks up with this with this glucose receptor, and it shoots it inside the cell. We now have glucose floating around inside the cell, so now your body can say, oh, hey, do I need to repair DNA? Do I need energy? What do I need? At least you got the nutrients in there. That's what we want. If you've got thyroid, for example, T4 floating around the blood, that's an inactive form of thyroid. It's not going to do you any good until it gets into the cell. So once it gets into the cell, it can turn into T3, which is the active form of thyroid. Your body has it now. It can say, oh, hey, do I need to produce heat? Do I need to cool down? What needs to happen? But the bottom line is, right here at that membrane, that's where the interaction takes place. So you've all heard of type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance. So what that is you've got insulin in here, but it cannot get into the cell. So when insulin cannot get into the cell, you can't keep it in your blood. Where do you think it goes? Well, it stores it here in fat. Now here's where it kind of gets crazy, is when we have inflammation in these cells, we have insulin resistance, so we get inflammation around the cell here. Now all of a sudden these membranes are what we call blunted, or excuse me, these receptors are blunted. So now we're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. It doesn't work, so we're having resistance here at the cell membrane. So you ate 2,000 calories at McDonald's, not much of it is getting into the cell. So your body says, holy cow, we can't get it into the cell, we're gonna store it as fat. And now what ends up happening 30 minutes later, 45 minutes later, is your body knows it consumed a whole bunch, but you didn't get any nutrition inside the cell. So what does your body do? It triggers a hunger signal, a craving. We get a ton of patients that come in and go, man, I want to eat better, I want to feel better, but I don't think I have the self-discipline to do this because I'm always craving, I'm always hungry. So this is one of the things we teach patients is once you can start getting these receptors back healthy again, you're going to start digesting and absorbing your food better. Once you start balancing your blood sugar, once you start getting nutrition inside of a cell, now all of a sudden your body is getting the nutrition that it needs. Now it doesn't need to send out that craving signal or that hunger signal because you're utilizing your nutrition. So we eat that 2,000 calories from McDonald's, we're inflamed because of the medications we're on, the stress that we're under, the nutrition that the standard American diet, which is the SAD diet, which is what most of us are on. We're stressed to the max, and so we're not getting that nutrition inside the cell. We might be getting a little bit, but again, not enough to keep us healthy. So our body just continues to store that as fat. We get a craving, we eat more, that cycle goes on and on and on. And this is what Americans live like. We're the most undernourished society on this planet, yet we are the most overcalorated society on this planet. We eat tons. We're just not extrapolating information because we're sick, or extrapolating nutrition because we're sick. So hopefully this makes a little bit of sense. What we want to do is get rid of the inflammation here so that these receptors will start to function normally and we can start to get that nutrition back into the body. So a balanced body isn't going to experience as many cravings. That is diagram number 1 in how we're different. So let me get this erased and then we're going to come to diagram number 2, which we're going to talk about digestion, absorption, assimilation, and how all of that takes place. So we got the cell membrane there. Now what we're going to draw is, so pretend that is your esophagus. So obviously when we chew food, we got to swallow that. It's going to go into the stomach. And again, I apologize for being overly simplistic here. I think that's still wet, so we're not getting great writing on there. But inside the stomach, you have hydrochloric acid, and that begins to partially break down your food. So comes into here, partially breaks it down, and then it spits it out into the the small intestine. Now this is where it starts to get really, really important because the different medication, we have it's called the microbiome in that gut. You have good bacteria in that gut that helps you to digest, absorb, it's your immune system. 70 to 80% of the immune system is in your guts. Your serotonin is in your gut. That's your happy transmitter. Melatonin is produced in that gut. So if this gut flora is not working properly, digestion, absorption does not work properly. We get hormone imbalances, we get hormone resistance. So what we want to have inside the gut is basically that good bacteria lines the gut. So to give you a visual on that, it's almost like a shag carpet. It's almost like little fingers. So when that partially digested food gets into here, it finishes the job in the small intestine. So once it digests it, then ideally that glucose gets across that barrier, which is really the only thing that should get across that barrier. It comes out here, and now we just draw a mini cell like we had drawn here earlier. It's got the receptor site here. That docks up, nutrition gets into the cell. That's how we want it to work. Here's the problem in America today, is our guts are trashed. Now, guts are very, very important, not just for digestion, absorption, assimilation, immunity. There is now scientifically proven there is a gut-brain connection. So if your guts aren't healthy, it is very, very hard for you to be healthy anywhere. Doesn't matter whether it's a chronic or autoimmune type condition. conditions in the brain, you have got to have healthy guts. And so what ends up happening, again, your liver sits down here and your liver kicks into this as well. But where we talk about chronic inflammation, this is what we're talking about. The insides of that gut. A lot of folks, when we first started talking about leaky gut syndrome, had no idea what it was. So here's basically what it is. We're inflamed. We lose the good bacteria in the guts because of the garbage food we're eating, the medications that we're on. We inflame. So now all of a sudden, we're letting undigested food particles or garbage that get into the system here. And this is where it starts. This is where we are completely different from medicine. This is where we are different from symptom chasing. So for example, my condition had rheumatoid arthritis. What did they want to do? They wanted to go in and they wanted to take care of that inflammation. Somebody else gets lupus or fibromyalgia, or somebody else has depression, or whatever the case may be. Again, you line 15 people up in a room, subject them to the same stresses, they're going to get 15 different diagnoses. Disease follows the path of least resistance. And here's where it happens, is you let this garbage into your system, your body does not recognize it. So what does it have to do now? It's got to come protect itself. So it comes here and it has to battle that. So that battle takes place in the guts. My symptoms generated swollen joints. Somebody else generates headaches. But the bottom line is medicine is going to go after that and give me anti-inflammatories, give somebody else a migraine medication, or whatever the case may be. What they're not doing is they're not fixing the source of the problem. And this is where the source of the problem is in a lot of these patients, is we have to go in through diet and nutrition, targeted diet and nutrition. We've got to get that inflammation down so that we don't have those large junctures in the guts, so we're not letting garbage in. We've got to re-inoculate or put the good bacteria back into the guts. And once we can do that, now all of a sudden we're not letting these undigested foodstuffs or garbage into the system, which creates a response. Now what we're doing is getting that digestion and absorption back into the cells where it needs to be. And so the bottom line is this, is if you try to battle these types of chronic and autoimmune conditions or weight loss with the old approach, weight loss, for example, is going to go up and down. You're always going to gain it back because you're not getting at the cause. You're not getting at the source. All these chronic and autoimmune conditions, you're not getting at the source. So once we get in here and we start working on the guts, we start working with digestion, absorption, detoxification, that's where the magic starts to happen. So if you don't have detoxification or nutrition as part of a long-term program, your program's going to fail. In essence, what we're trying to do is preach a lifestyle here. And we have the coaching, we have the know-how to do that, we have the program that shows you exactly what to do, when to do, how to do it, so that you can turn it into a lifestyle change for you and your family. So that, hopefully, is the long answer to the short question of why are we different here at Elevated Health? Simple answer, I guess, is we work from the inside out and we show you how to do that.